there's a formula for earthquakes. I'm just going to steal it like this. And on an exam, they would give you this formula and tell you that I is the intensity, M is the magnitude, and I is the intensity compared to some standard, and S is the standard. So most of you have probably heard of an earthquake before. And you've probably heard of the Richter scale. And the Richter scale is used to measure earthquakes. But because earthquakes can vary so much from the big ones to the small ones, because there is technically right now in Winnipeg some seismic activity going on, but we can't feel it because it's so small. But big earthquakes like take down buildings. So there's a huge difference. And whenever there's a huge difference in measuring something, they use a logarithmic scale. And what a logarithmic scale does is each increase in 1 on a Richter scale is 10 times more intense than the previous one. So comparing a 5 to a 6, the 6 is 10 times more intense than a 5. Comparing a 5 to a 7 is 100 times more intense. Because it goes up, every one that you go up increases its intensity by 10. So, here they've got the most intense earthquake ever was a 9.5. That would be 10 times bigger than an 8.5. 100 times bigger than a 7.5. 1,000 times more intense than a 6.5. I've never been in any big earthquake, but I can imagine being a 6.5 being quite scary. And thinking 1,000 times more scary than that? Wow. Anyways, so we've got 10 to the 9.5. Part A says calculate the intensity, so we want to calculate the intensity compared to a standard of a 9.5. So in A, you would plug in 9.5 for the magnitude. And whenever you're solving for something inside a logarithm, that's what we did in our notes before, where you have to get a single logarithm, which this is already a single logarithm. Then the hardest step is once you have a single logarithm, you use the definition and change it to exponential form. In other words, this log form in exponential form, the base is 10, the log solve for an exponent, so that becomes the exponent, equals I over S. So if I wanted to get I by itself, all I would need to do is multiply both sides by S. And that gets my intensity all by itself. So this 10 to the 9.5, that's a huge number. And 10 to the 10 would be 10 zeros. 10 to the 9.5 just a little bit less. That's how much more intense it is compared to what we're experiencing right now. It's probably the standard is what you experience on a normal day. Very little seismic activity. It's like billions times more intense than what we're experiencing right now. Okay? And then usually what they do in these questions is they say, can you compare two earthquakes and tell me how much bigger one is than the other one? So they want to look at the one in Haiti, which was a 7. So they tell us the magnitude of the Haiti one is 7. The shortcut for these, which I would encourage you to use, is I hope you notice that from 7 to 9.5, you go up 2.5. So this is the easy way to solve these questions. There we go. We're done. Yeah, I mean, you could type that into your calculator and get the actual number. Just for curiosity, 10 to the power 2.5, 316 times more intense. I should do 3 decimal places. Oh, it does say it in here? Oh, perfect. I should do to 3 decimal places, then reread the question, and then find out I'm fine. So that's still an error on my part. Always start with 3 decimal places, then reread your question to see if you should change it. 316 times more intense. Now, if you wanted to do this, if they just asked you part B, okay? If they just asked you part B and you wanted to use the formula, you would have to do what we did in part A, and I would actually add a little letter here, like a little tiny C. That's intensity of chili. Does it make sense that if you did the exact same thing with Haiti, you would get this, right? You would do like just the 9.5 would change. And if you want to compare 2 intensities to find out how many times one is bigger than the other, you would have to take the bigger one, intensity of chili. I like the little, oh, just about to say, I like the little red letters, divided by the intensity of Haiti. Well, that would be 10 to the 9.5 divided by 10 to the 7.0. What's your exponent law when dividing? Subtract. Do you see that you would get the 10 to the 2.5? Anyways, that would be how the formula would lead you through it. Although on the exam for earthquakes, they allow you to say, if you know that every one you go up by is 10 times more, we went up by 2.5, so it's going to be 10 to the 2.5 times more. They accept that. All right. Questions for practice on this one? 4, 5, 9, 10, 10 to 11.